All right, happy Friday, everybody. Today is August 22nd, and you're watching My Community Manager, the community built by, for, and managed by community managers. So thanks for hanging out with us. As always, you can chat along with our Twitter chat, which is going on simultaneously at hashtag CMGR Hangout. I know some of you are watching from over there, so hello, guys. Also, remember, at any time, please tweet in questions for our panel. You can tweet to the My Community Manager handle. We'll pick that up and bring your tweets in on the show. So if you love what you're seeing today and you have a great idea for a topic or want to join us live, go to our website at mycmgr.com, click on Participate, fill out the form. That comes to Sherry and I, and it's really your topics, your ideas, and your friends that bring this awesome content to community managers every Friday. So today we're going to talk about using community management to help a cause. This could be in the form of a nonprofit or a for-profit organization. Some of the questions I certainly have are things like, how do you build a community and then help that community join forces to help others, or possibly how do you continue to reach beyond those you know and grow your circle of influence. So those are all things we'll talk about today, as well as a bunch of other questions. We're going to start, first of all, as always, have to give a shout out to Sarah Nagel and Carrie Keenan, who help us out on our Twitter chat, so thanks for being over there, guys. And let's just start by having everyone introduce themselves and what you do. And Tim, let's start with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I am Tim McDonald. I work at Be the Change Revolutions and have the very good fortune to work on the No Kid Hungry campaign for Share Our Strength. And No Kid Hungry is something that I've been involved with well before I joined the BTC team. And it really aims to end childhood hunger in the U.S. So just really passionate about that. And you'll see a lot of my tweets, a lot of my avatars all have hashtag No Kid Hungry. And talking about how we can get involved and get people active in that.
Hey everyone, I'm Sherry. I co-produce CMGR Hangout here with Brew every week, and I also lead community and user experience for a company called Rebellion Media, where we work with a few different chronic health conditions.
Okay, so, oops, there it goes. Hi, my name is Molly Cantrell Craig. I'm the founder of a nonprofit called Women with Drive Foundation in Chicago. And we moved to Chicago about a year ago in order to learn how to scale nationally. And we serve women who are trying to segue and transition off welfare because the missing element is transportation, statistically speaking. So we've moved here to learn how to integrate to a greater community, a larger community, to serve actually, there's so many layers of community, so I'm really glad to have this conversation today. But in brief, that's who I am, and looking forward to learning from everyone.
Hi there, my name is Eli in Vancouver, Canada, and I'm the community manager for TechSoup's Net Squared. TechSoup is this global organization that wants to increase the skills of nonprofits using technology. They do that with training and software donations. And where I come into that is I work with a global network of volunteers who hold in-person live technology trainings and workshops.
Hi everyone, I'm Bethany, and I'm the Director of Global Customer Engagement for TOMS, and we're a one-for-one company and basically focused on using business as a force for good. This is my colleague David.
Hi, I'm David. I am a community manager for the customer engagement team, and I'm really, really fortunate and lucky to work with all of our campus programs. So I get to work with students to create community and just activate around creating positive change.
We're so glad to be here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amanda Britt, also in Chicago, and I'm the founder of Panzanzi. We're a social impact incubator and school here in Chicago, and our mission is to grow the pipeline of fundable companies that make incremental impact. And we are a community-led and driven model. We're a for-profit, but we have a lot of the hybrid nonprofit for-profit elements because we serve both types of organizations. And one of our mantras is that when a community comes together, anything is possible. That's very high level, but we're a business driven by community. Very happy to be here today.
Awesome. Yeah, wow, what a great group of people that we brought all together here. I'm just gonna jump into the first question and really, kind of want to know, hear from all of you. How do you define a cause? So when somebody says like, hey, I'm for this cause, like, what's the general definition in your words of what a cause is? By the
This is
way,
Amanda.
anyone can jump in. Yeah, go ahead, Amanda.
Yeah, I'll jump in first. We have sort of 3 M's that we classify, if you want to call it cause with action, is a mission, a motive, and a model, a business model, whether you're for-profit or nonprofit. And the mission is that you come into an idea, an effort, and ultimately an organization where you want to solve something, and that might be a great definition of cause, in that there's an issue that is a gap in our society, be it locally to globally, and you want to bring a more viable solution to address unmet needs in that. And so that's a very broad definition, but we believe it excuse me, doesn't just end with that mission. There's a motivation to do something about it, whether it be like something on Facebook or throw ice on your head in the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, to actually starting or running or joining an organization to move it forward. And then the third, there's a model around it to mobilize that mission and the motive that you have, that it doesn't just end with the idea, that there is some mobilization, and that could be a business, a nonprofit, that could be a Hangout, it could be a Google Hangout, it could be an email chain, and that leads to donations. It ultimately is a movement that manifests not only in the mission and the motive to do something well, but it manifests with a tractionable vehicle that carries it out. And then it has a group of people, we call that a community, that sees it through. And I love that there's such a vast array of structures that can take in today's tech age.
Well said.
So Amanda is going to shame me because she's obviously thought deeply on this. I am definitely very agnostic on any kind of fixed definition, but generally I think that any project that gets people super passionate to come together and get something completed and done in this world is, to me, a cause and something I want to support.
Yeah, I think for us it's really a reason for action, and people really crave being a part of something much bigger than themselves and leaving a footprint that is positive and purposeful.
Yeah, anything that just gets someone excited to take an action. I see that as a cause. And then I think when it becomes kind of real and tangible is when that one person has then inspired someone else to take up that cause, or even find their own personal cause and take movement on it. So that for me is kind of the definition.
I was wondering if I could just kind of build on what has been said already, and for me, the cause is the crucible or the focal point that keeps everything together. And it's the centrality that helps drive all of the external actions. And so as long as that cause remains cohesive, you're able to reference it back, and it's either the idea or, again, the model or mission. I think that what was said earlier, the cause is the barometer, or it's the point at which it's your baseline or your benchmark that can help make sure that it's still useful, and it's also something that you can build from as a magnet to draw other people to. Like David had said, I think that there's a gathering point at which that everyone can have a commonality to it. And I gotta mute.
Yeah, I mean, I love everybody's answers, and I was thinking what I could come up with that wouldn't be any different, because you used all the words that I'd say. But I think the one thing that I really look at a cause is it's kind of that intangible thing that all of us still grasp onto, that bring us together in the community. But I think the two components of it that you have to have are, you have to have the movement, and you need to have the action to go along with it. Otherwise, you do not have a cause.
Awesome. Yeah, it's like the reason and the purpose, right? It's why people gather together. That's So it's cool because actually cause sort of is like community just comes right along, almost you would think with cause. But I guess we'll get into that. So next question is, how is running a community for a cause easier, or is it more difficult than running a profit-driven community? And does anybody have experience doing both, or what is your perception?
And how is running a community for a cause different or important?
Yeah, well, so I think what we're looking for here is, running that community, is it easier or is it more difficult than a for-profit community? And what are some of the things that make it easier or more difficult in your mind?
Do you mind if I kick off with that? Because before I established Women with Drive Foundation, I worked in advertising on behalf of clean tech and green communities, which are very science-based, very logic-based, and lots of science and engineering involved. And what I found that's true with causes is that there are a lot more emotions that come into play. People attach to a cause because someone in their family has had ALS. People attach to a cause because emotional reasons drive those interactions a lot more than you'll see with like someone, for example, who has a specific affinity toward a pair of shoes. Shoes are very important. Tom's has succeeded in turning emotion into shoes because they've drilled down to how crucial something as simple that we take for granted. I mean, my closet can barely shut because I've got so many shoes, but there can be people in the world that don't have a pair. So they've successfully attached emotion to logic to buying a product that they know can have excellent ripples of goodwill. And I didn't mean to steal your thunder, but it's like there's very few people who, when they communicate for a community, for a brand that has to do with something like, I don't know, ice picks or something, people seldom say, this is the only ice pick for me because I have to have this ice pick. It's just like, I've got a bar, I've got one in my kitchen, I use one in the garage to pick stuff out of my car vents. I don't know, it's an ice pick. So causes are very central to people's identity, and you mess with their cause and you're attacking their essence, and it's a very tricky thing to negotiate when you're out there in the space. So that's all I have to say about that.
So I largely come from the nonprofit world, so I haven't done explicit community building in my other worlds. But I would say, on the whole, it's way easier to build a cause around, or sort of build like a community around a cause, just because we've talked about that sense of ownership and that deep passion. That shortcuts you. Businesses spend a lot of time and money trying to replicate that, but it sort of comes along with the package with a cause, especially if it's constructed in a way that people actually have entry points into it. The downside often I've seen in the nonprofit world is our success doesn't necessarily lead to more resources. So that's just the trap, which is the more successful you are, the more you may have to spread your resources, whereas in a business, if you're really successful, hopefully that drives more money back into the business. So it becomes this virtuous cycle, and nonprofits are naturally in that space. And so that's the crazy-making part of that business.
I think so many good things said so far. What I would add to that, in particularly working in the for-profit space for a cause, is that it's sort of the yes and principle, that yes, there's a business that could bring about a viable return, and the mission of this business and the actual output is to address a chief end beyond the profit. And that is that's relatable, and that's something to rally behind. And what I'm learning, both about myself and about the people we interact with, is that we're looking for a connection to something greater than ourselves. And the more we can experience really living and feeling fully alive, that might be connected to purpose and meaning. It might simply be a unifying experience like the ALS Bucket Challenge. I'll say that again because it's so big that you feel connected even if you don't feel connected to the issue. The challenge with that, and we're finding, particularly in the for-profit space, is it's the yes and principle. It's that we think, and our systems operate now in our tax codes in very binary terms. It's either you make money and you give charitably, or you donate, or you run a charitable organization, and there's not a profit involved. And in social enterprise, we're in this space where we're blending the two concepts, and our systems mindset doesn't operate to play in the gray as easily. So it's harder to understand, and it's harder to remove the, quote, stigma of, and it's not a negative stigma, it's just a stigma of, oh, that's social, therefore it's either not going to generate profits or it may generate less profits. In either case, that may be true, but to think beyond the mindset of social means cash out only, that is a stigma, I think, that's really becoming hard, and sort of building community around a cause. It's very easy to get, for an incubator like us, it's very easy to get entrepreneurs and support for them from everything from attorneys and accountants to young students to professionals with 40 years of experience who want to give back as mentors. But when it comes down to the capital exchange, it's much more difficult to get investors past the hurdle of cause or social. And so what I think, again, since you're on the line, Stephanie and David, what Tom's has done so well is create a product that just works in the marketplace, period. And it has this incremental impact that the community gets behind.
Do you mind if I jump in and answer the question from online in regards to the art community? I see that it popped up in chat, or what do you want to do?
I'll just let me.
Because I can keep going on the. I didn't know how that.
Oh yeah, no, it's all good. Yeah,
okay.
So Sarah tweeted in and asked us, what about arts organizations? Because she finds it much more difficult for them to define causes in that realm. So Molly, what do you have to say about that?
Do you mind? Yeah, because in addition to, I volunteered as the marketing director for an artist co-op, and in addition to being a working artist, an oil painter, and it's very difficult to sell an intangible, and what you're doing with an art community is you've got to be able to relate the worth, which is very hard to quantify for arts, because the arts have so many benefits that ripple out through a community that it's very difficult to measure those and to say to a patron, well, if you donate $10,000 to us, and we can turn that into X amount of measurable ROI, and it's very difficult, but it's not impossible. And so making sure I stay on track. So basically what you've got to do as part of your leadership of that art organization is to get crystal clear on 2 or 3 measurable outcomes that you can link your work in the space, and then show. The great thing about social media is that, I'm going to do this and say it's free, because social media, of course, is not free, but it is the great leveler. So if you've got 2 or 3 people in your organization who are very savvy, who are very well placed, it's easier for you to leverage your efforts in the space to get a greater return on your input into the community. And it's just you just got to be a little bit more like X-Wings and strategic in terms of the way that you expend your energy. And then link your efforts to measurable outcomes in your community and be crystal clear on those things for probably, I'm going to say, anywhere from 6 months to 2 years, and attach it to something that can be seen and held up as something that you can interact with that community. So, for example, hold Google Hangouts, do a live tweet meetup, do things in Instagram where you have maybe community involvement, where you tweet or you share through Instagram individual artists' piece, juried shows. I mean, just really think to yourself, how many ways can I connect this to a social medium? And of those social mediums or social platforms, who in my organization have a natural affinity or skill to leveraging that? And then just do the work, just block and tackle and do it. And you'll notice that there will be some impact that shows up. Probably not immediately. I'm going to say probably anywhere from 4 weeks to 3 months. But if you're consistent, it will happen. I'm going to click off my mic.
All right. I will take this one as well. So I have worked largely, when I worked in arts organizations, around theaters and large outdoor festivals. And I think you're right. It's got a different feeling than lots of other cause-based work, because the people actually go to your events are often, if they're buying tickets, then this very transactional relationship, and that just changes the whole orientation of how you're actually engaged, as in, like, now I'm in a business transaction as opposed to I'm in this ownership cause-based place. But I've definitely been part of one outdoor festival who did this really well, who built a powerful, amazing community that usually makes me weep because it's so powerful in changing my life. And so this was an outdoor folk music festival which brought together 40,000 people every year, and those are the people who are in the transactional relationship. They bought tickets, they walked away at the end of this. But there were also 2,000 people who volunteered to build this, and their deep sense of ownership is like just kind of stunning. And to me, their success in really building that deep sense of ownership went actually back to the top of the organization. So in their case, the way they were successful is the only way to become a member of the board was to have volunteered for the 2 previous years. So it wasn't a big money board or a board who is disassociated from the core community, but rather you had to be deeply engaged in the community to even participate in the leadership of the organization, which I thought was really smart, but is obviously a hard thing to do for organizations because it requires you to think about community from the governance level down.
Awesome. Well, hopefully, Sarah, hopefully that helped you out and answered some of your questions. I'm going to quick bring in one more question from Twitter, which comes from William. Thanks for joining us once again on a Friday, William. So William asks a question for the panel. If you have a cause, how do you encourage competitors to collaborate with each other? I think this is really interesting of a question. Who would like to take it?
I'll take a first stab at it. So we recently, about a year ago, launched Tom's Marketplace, and we feature a lot of different brands on our e-commerce platform. And while we really focus on the larger giving family, and while that doesn't bring significant amounts of money to the company, it's doing the right thing, and it's platforming those other brands and giving them the opportunity to get their stories out. And we're a storytelling brand, and we're often at conferences and events and on the ground, boots on the ground with a lot of these other brands and that are part of the social good space, and a lot of them sell similar products to Tom's, and we think that we're better together than we are apart. And we will champion our neighbors and our friends, and I always use the hashtag giving family because I would rather be in this massive social good wave with them than without them. And I think we're much stronger together. It's a stronger story. We're good community to each other. We tell each other about what's going on, opportunities that may evolve. So I like competitors, and I view them as family.
Stephanie, that's such a great point. Do you, beyond the community, and it says you don't generate a lot of revenue from this giving family concept, but do you have outcomes that you look for or measure, or is it still more of an experiment or just a fluidity in the marketplace that you're trying out and it's just good to do? Are you measuring anything, I guess is what I'm
no, we're definitely measuring all of that, and I mean, we're definitely, it's a profitable thing, and it will continue to be very profitable. Hear me out, it's definitely profitable, but it's a beginning adventure. We've only been doing Marketplace for a year. It's definitely profitable. We continue to invest in it. We add new brands to it. It's something that we're very passionate about, but we definitely are looking at those numbers. You have to have metrics. You have to be able to quantify the success. But in general, it's something that we're really passionate about doing. We know it's the right thing.
Something we talk about a lot, too, that always comes back to is the why of what we do, and really getting back to the why of that we believe we can improve lives through business. And on the one hand, the right thing to do is to, help those other businesses kind of get up and running and help other people. But, at the end of the day, they still do have to be profitable to be successful so that we can continue to improve more lives through business. So.
I'll speak to the startup side of that, perhaps the earlier stage. I was just at lunch today with one of our member companies. They're a PR company called Prosper PR, and they focus 100% on social impact organizations, which is a tough bill to go, and they're doing great. And she was telling me that she had been introduced to her business partner through our network a year ago, and she said, I had one of these moments where I was sitting on my couch and I was just like, yeah, we're growing, I'm running this business, but I don't know how much more I can take of the grind as a solopreneur. And so here comes another solopreneur who has a new PR startup with the same focus, and they ended up merging forces. And she was talking about the delicacy and the challenges of this merger, where they each had to give up a slight piece of their ownership and vision, and yet together separately they knew they wouldn't either want to proceed or it would not be sustainable to proceed. And so in the earlier stage of a cause or an organization, what's so fascinating is the ability to, instead of being a self-controlled effort or a control effort, this is mine, I want to do this, it's my vision, being able to expand that to building missions together with similar like-minded potential competitors that may instead be partners, either partially or wholly, and that builds a mission together. You're finding and you're building a mission mindset. You're looking to build the right team of people to move a mission forward versus this is my idea and I'm going to move it forward and potentially reach burnout. And it's happened with me, and it's happened in so many entrepreneurs in the realm. It's almost a natural process that an entrepreneur has to go through. But to find the right vision partners, we look at vision, values, skill set match, and then the logistics. Does the deal work? Does the timing work? Are the 4 elements that we advise our entrepreneurs and we look for ourselves in seeking partnerships, and it really builds a stronger output.
When I first saw that question, I mean, my first response was going to be, we need to stop calling them competitors and start looking at them as collaborators, because that's in essence how we work together, is by collaborating. I mean, obviously we need to do it if it's going to make sense for everybody. But I think the other thing is, and this is one thing that I've always looked at is, sometimes if your organization or the brand isn't ready to embark in something like that, and they don't have the mindset or the culture to kind of embrace that, then why don't you look to your community and have them be the one that kind of spearhead some of these things on a much smaller scale? You're not putting yourself out on the line for being responsible for it. You're not going against your company values or culture. And if it works, you document the success that they're having and then have a case study to bring back to your organization and say, here's what can be done.
All right, let's about halfway through. Let's jump to question number 3, which is what role does social media play for cause-based communities? I'd like to take that. Tim, you stealing?
I will.
Just chomping at the
Yeah.
Oh,
well, I was just trying to figure out the thing is that Women with Drive actually has a very symbiotic relationship with its community, because it's almost, for one thing, I always explain to anybody about social media, whether they're a business or a social entrepreneurism or their cause marketing, is that social media is 24-hour a day, 7 days a week R&D. It's research and development that's on all the time, no matter where you are on the globe, and all you need to know is how to measure what you're looking for. That being said, the community that we built around our model almost came, I'm going to say at least 50 to 60% from the community themselves, because what happens is the content that you see on our pages and in our space and that is reflected in our blog posts are a result of women emailing us with questions. Hey, I'm going to lose my home. Hey, I just got divorced and I don't know anything about going back to school, or all of these different things that women are emailing us, and we always get them at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and they're scared out of their gourd. And so what we do as an organization is answer the question to the best of our ability directly, and then we figure out a way to package that answer in the corporate, and we answer it on our pages, or we link to an article that can offer resources with the idea or the understanding that if one person has a question, there's probably at least 10 other people on the planet who have the same question and or need and don't have a way of asking it, or afraid to ask, or whatever it is. And so a lot of our content that's out there is built specifically in answer to questions from women throughout the globe. One of the biggest shocks was when we got a request for a car from a woman in Senegal. And at first I thought it was, you know, the Nigerian prince where I've, you know, got $1 million or whatever. And I started reading it, and this woman had gotten a Kiva award, and she had quite accurately understood if she had a car, she could make more money. And so I had to answer her and say, well, we're not set up globally. However, I was so impressed by just her business acumen, and that's another thing in terms of, I'm going to just add briefly that the other thing that it plays, the role that social media plays for us, is that we have a direct lens into the global system and the commonality of everybody. Those questions that we get from people, whether it's from the UK, New Zealand, Romania, or Boise, Idaho, are all the same question. I'm scared. I need resources. Where can I get help for this? And so that the universal needs and concerns of people everywhere, it doesn't matter what color you are, what your religion are, you have these same needs that you're seeking, and community is the way that we as a species have figured out how to get along. I mean, together we're better. I think, you know, Bethany said it perfectly. So social is intrinsic to what we do. We couldn't survive without it. I honestly think we couldn't survive without it.
Well, it's really kind of you. Thank you for the compliment. I think at the end of the day, people just really want to feel valued, and that's what we're looking to give people through social too. And you know, I was looking at this question and I was thinking, gosh, we do so much with social media. It's you know, we really built it kind of organically as a startup in the early days, and we revolved so much around it, from Ticket to Give, which was the contest we did where we found our really involved you know, fans in social media and people that are making a massive difference in their community, and we put them on giving trips, and we found them. It was all through social. It was 100% run through social media. Just yesterday, I was thinking about this question, and I was thinking, oh, we respond to fan mail, and we got a great little Instagram post yesterday from a person that was so excited to get a piece of mail from us back. You know, we responded to their letter, sent them a goodie, and sent them some resources, and they were so excited they put a picture on Instagram, and that really shows, like, we're real, we're community, and we value you, and we really focus a lot on making our community feel valued, and it starts here. It starts at the core, making your employees feel valued, your team feel valued, and then your community feel valued. And I think when you retweet something, people feel value. When you talk about them, when you mention them, it's like a little hug through social. So we definitely do a lot with social media.
Yeah, and I think one other thing is it allows people to take personal ownership of a cause and have access to share that cause with so many more people than they would, you know, be able to otherwise. We did a recent this summer campaign called I Am Tom, and we've kind of asked people to basically, you know, hashtag I Am Tom and take ownership about how they were inspired by One for One and how they were giving back in their own communities to really create positive change. And to me, it was amazing to see kind of how the social media aspect, you know, turns into a tangible outcome. And, you know, the pictures, people, same thing with the fan mail. We send a physical piece of mail, and then it goes back into the digital space, and somewhere down the road, that turns back into a physical activation again of positive change in the community. It's pretty inspiring.
I think you guys have hit on, all three of you, a really important point that's a new movement in the cause space, and it's not only possible to donate your time and money, but your voice. And the voice is the third component that's perhaps undervalued, and I think there's a lot going around about slacktivism and that you're not actually making traction with a cause. But I don't think you can judge slacktivism if you're correlating that to voice from afar. I think you have to judge it by the person individually, and on a whole, I think lending the voice, whether you're an individual or a company, is so powerful, and social media is the tool to do that. Sure, you can do a crowdfunding campaign, and that's social media to an extent, and you can lend your time and learn about something through social media, and tell your story, which takes time, but the voice is so powerful. And I think, Molly, you said it, that, and you, Steph, too, that at the end of the day, the universal need is of our sort of humanity are the concerns we all share, and they just manifest differently. So again, to answer the question, social media and causes, wow, power of the voice, and let's not underestimate that.
Power of the voice.
And can I add one thing in there, because I mean, when you said that your voice is the third component of giving. I write about that a lot, is that we all have something to give, and that's one of the things. I do think that where social media really comes into play in this for causes especially, is that in the past, we were only, as brands and organizations, able to listen to our consumers in a very limited capacity. Today, we now have an unlimited potential to listen to all of our community, and what that does, it allows us to hear their heartbeats. We can feel the ones that are beating harder, we can feel the ones that beat consistently, and we know that from the difference of the ones that are just the Slack divisions, which are the one-offs giving one tweet and then disappearing because they're just doing it for the moment in time. And so this is the pure magic of where social media comes into play. It's that we're able to capture and listen to what the community is saying around our cause. And so that, I think, is undeniably where I see the power of social media when it comes to causes.
And I think what you've talked about there about that power brings with it also an enormous responsibility, which is now that there is direct access between organizations and individuals, individuals' expectations of us as organizations is changing as well. And that is a radical change and a real, it's pushing organizations to, and they're struggling with that because they're so used to dealing with a small number of stakeholders, and because everyone has that sense of ownership, we're all struggling right now in more traditional organizations who weren't born of the internet to figure out how do we actually incorporate that feedback and actually meet the needs of our members in this deeper way and this more responsive way.
Got another question for you guys that came in through Twitter from Mark Rowan. Hi, Mark. His question is, so who has had an inadvertent social media campaign started by followers? Anybody have a story to share about that? Where your followers, basically your community, started kind of their own little movement or own little campaign on their own?
I think we've only mentioned it about 10 times, right? What happened with ALS and the Ice Bucket Challenge? That wasn't started even as an ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. It was by a bunch of golfers, and then a couple people that had ALS jumped in and did it. And I definitely think, I mean, I've seen some of our, I can't say that it's gone, viral, but I mean, we're starting to see some of our community members with No Kid Hungry start their own campaigns, which is what we absolutely love. I mean, we encourage them to do that. We give them the latitude to do that, and to start seeing, an 11-year-old Devin, Hirsch start up a Giving Grub, a website, a donation page, and wristbands that he reaches out to all these celebrities and well-known chefs and gets asks if he can send them to them and gets them to wear them. He's had people like Lou Diamond Phillips and Adam Rickman actually respond and DM him about getting together and planning events. So I mean, it's in the very early stages, but seeing where that goes gives me tremendous promise, and we embrace the fact that they're doing this and want to see more people doing that.
We also had a similar situation where we had a campaign start that was not of our brainchild. It's actually One Day Without Shoes, which a lot of people have heard about, which our company now supports on a very large global scale. But it was actually started by a couple college students at Pepperdine University, and they were in the surf club, and they loved our brand and really just wanted to get the word out more. And so social media was involved, and it was their idea, and they were the first ones to do a walk, and now it's one of the biggest campaigns that we focus on annually and globally.
Awesome. All right, switching over to our fourth question real quick for you guys is, how do you drive fundraising without constantly asking for money? Who has some advice for that?
Sure.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Eli.
All right, it's a classic Canadian problem. I apologize for that. So I think my experience around fundraising within the cause space, especially when it comes to social, is generally don't. I found almost no success with a more traditional charity audience around raising money through social media asks. On the other hand, I found it's this amazing acquisition channel which brings in people who, you know, are interested and passionate about your cause. And my goal had always been to change the medium, which is to say I made zero money off social media. I made lots of money off email. And so my goal was to find that segment of my audience on social who was interested in giving their email to go deeper in exchange for action alerts, in exchange for PDFs to download. I basically had to find reasons to convince people on social that they also really wanted to give me their email address, because those same people who would not give at all on social media were really excited to give if I asked them via email. A mystery, I don't know why, but that was certainly my experience in several organizations.
I'm going to add a little bit of something that I know almost nothing about, so take this with a grain of salt. But because I'm not the American Red Cross, I'm not a huge nonprofit, but what I have seen that's successful for a large crisis-based nonprofit that does good work all of the time is that you can build your apparatus through the access point being social media, so that when something really bad or terrible happens, for example, an earthquake or a critical need is met, like Haiti is or something, if you can be able to communicate through social media that you have the capacity to manage donations, the actual donation giving point is texting. But having that access point and that communication and that conversation already stabilized and present through a social media gives you a soft entry point of awareness in general. So again, not being from the Red Cross, I don't know half of what I'm talking about, but if you wanted to use a conduit analogy where social media can be used as an access point in that example, that I would say would be a fundraising component, but isn't necessarily something where, hey, we need to meet our overhead, so we're going to have a fundraising awareness tweet that goes out every 6 weeks. You know, that kind of stuff, absolutely, I'm going to agree with Elijah, that is not successful. It's spamming your people, and it's annoying. But if you say to people through a social media channel, hey, if we need your help, this is how you can do it, that's usually very successful.
What I was going to say, I mean, with No Kid Hungry, what we really find is, you know, we very rarely go out on social and ask anybody for donations on anything. But what we do is we ask people to, not all the time, I mean, we use this sparingly, we ask people to sign up for, you know, a registration drive. So all they're doing is signing up, you know, to give their email address to get in the system. But then those emails through the system end up asking for donations and collecting money. We ask people to sign up for things like a bake sale, where you can have the opportunity to raise. It's a individual fundraiser, so you get to raise money doing it that way. We're just asking you to sign up for that. The other thing, though, and this is where we do actually ask for money, and where we have had tremendous success in, is finding one day or one period of time where you can rally people and your followers in your community around that one particular moment to raise as much money as you possibly can. And you kind of, we found best in use with getting, you know, a sponsor to kind of help incentivize that. So every dollar that they give, we're matching it by a sponsor, or if we hit a certain number, it's going to, you know, add X number of dollars to the campaign. And so we do use social for that. And I think as long as you're not constantly doing that, we do that one day out of the year where we have a big ask, and that's on Giving Tuesday is when we really rally the troops around that. But it's not wrong to ask, it's just how you do it and how often you do it.
I like the idea of the community being collaborators and advocates in asking for money on your behalf, not only potential stakeholders through social media, but even whether it be collaborations and partnerships with other organizations or your mouthpiece. And that's the power of community, in that you have not only perhaps constituents, but ambassadors who already are speaking on your behalf. And on the social enterprise realm, one of the ways to do this, which is not possible for all nonprofits or even all causes, is to generate revenue through earned income, whether that be a product or service. And so many nonprofits right now are forced to look at how could we use a part or all of our services to actually add value in this specific segment of the marketplace and generate revenue. And whether that be a product like one of our member companies is called Gwakala Project, and they have a women's home in several locations in Uganda that takes formerly trafficked women from the LRA and houses them, gives them supplies and skill sets training, and then sells some of the products that they make into the marketplace. So there's an example of, while you'd never want a women's home to be a for-profit, you're finding ways to generate revenue through this model, and that offsets some of the fundraising challenges that they have. So probably a bit of an obvious answer, not applicable to all, but certainly in this economy, something not to overlook.
Let's see here. So I think this will probably be a real quick question here, seeing how the conversation is going. But does doing good make it easier or more difficult to engage with users? I'm going to guess and say easier, but does anybody have a perspective on that?
But I think it is easier overall. But I don't think it's like everybody makes it. I don't think it's a cakewalk. I don't think it's a piece of cake, because for as easy as it is to attract people in when you're doing good, there's always people that have a different opinion. And those different opinions generally have just as loud of a voice as your supporters. And so you're kind of in a place where you're defending what you're standing for, but at the same time, you have a lot of people that are behind you and willing to help support you.
We have a litmus test at Penzance that's called, at the end of the day, it's just a cup of yogurt. And that came from a company that worked with us in our early stage. They were a young yogurt company, $2.5 million in revenue in their second year, doing great. And they came to us and said, we have a great natural whey-based yogurt product. We want to make this social impact focus. So traditional commercial business model, wanting to develop a social cause beyond just corporate social responsibility and philanthropy. And so we went through all these scenarios of the causes they were passionate about and how you could facilitate exchanges through this product. And we always, when we got our head in the clouds, we'd always come back at the end of the day to, it's just a cup of yogurt. And at the it's not, but it is. And at the end of the day, what they found consumers were wanting was, they were still going to go with the yogurt that they loved, but they wanted the cheapest yogurt in a lot of cases, or they wanted a yogurt with a certain branding or a certain product. And so it was easier because it was a yogurt that in this test market was differentiated by the cause it supported. But it was more difficult because at the end of the day, people might buy Chobani, or which was a great brand for social causes, or Dannon yogurt simply because it was cheaper, or maybe they liked the honey Greek yogurt mix better than they liked her honey Greek yogurt mix. So it was yes and no, because at the end of the day, we're people, and we do make very choices based on our immediate needs at the same time. And finding that balance for this business and for extended businesses beyond this has been a challenge to sustain. It's about more sustaining the interest than the initial purchase and getting repeat customers.
Anybody else have anything on that topic, or should we move on? Well, we'll move on. All right, so last question of the day is, how does your community integrate with other marketing efforts?
Well, we're a storytelling brand, and I think in the community space, especially because we are so focused on making people feel welcome to the movement, valued, loved, appreciated, and we're not in our world trying to push product at them. That's other teams in the company are really focused on that. We're really focused on the community building and movement element of the brand, the grassroots piece, if you will. It's been fun too as the company continues to evolve, and we're only 8, so we still don't have it all figured out. We're still a startup, and it's still very scrappy kind of around here. But one thing that was that we really try to incorporate ourselves into all the marketing efforts. But one thing that was a really big win for our team really recently was, for the first time ever, we're in the Tom's catalog. So this is the new fall catalog, and the community has our little team has a full page, which is so exciting. It's all about getting involved. all about ways to further the movement, inspirational things to incorporate it into your life. Are you going to prom? Do you want to do Toms for prom? Are you, an educator? Do you want to teach on Start Something That Matters? We've got resources for that. And so it's exciting because this whole page is really ways to get involved and ways to inspire and ways to leverage your platform and your community for good. And so we have to, fight internal battles, but we're being incorporated more and more into the marketing elements. And we're going to have some presence on the new Tom's site in a couple months. And so, yeah, that's kind of what we're doing internally here.
I can go. Mostly because mine is actually, we have 3 different consumers. We have our stakeholders as a nonprofit, and those would be the financial investors who help fund our work. We've got the community partners, who are the people with whom we collaborate to help women move forward. And then our third consumer would be the participant that we serve, ultimately the women that are getting these cards and are moving forward. And each of those consumers requires a different communication strategy. And so, and part of our goal in communication is actually to be the best kept secret in the nonprofit world, because our chief consumer is the other community partners that help us identify and vet the participants who get cards. So what we have on the social that you see on the top of the surface is very general to help people understand who we are, what we do, and a lot of it is just general tutorial in nature, and especially on like Facebook and Twitter, it's a lot of we have a lot of engagement from people who don't need our services whatsoever, but they like interacting with our page because they like our content, or they'll say, hey, that quote was really something we needed to hear at the right moment. So to be perfectly frank, our community is not as, our community management isn't as integrated into what we do, because the nuts and bolts of our actual marketing is very internally focused to the community partners, but it's certainly a very important component of it. So I'm gonna...
Two of the ways we do it are, first of all, our best marketing piece at Panzanzi is word of mouth, which is really nice because it's cost effective. And we haven't invested a lot of money in our early stage in a great deal of marketing efforts because we wanted to focus our resources on the companies we support and really understanding what works for them to grow their business versus promote our brand and their brand. But what we found is it's really important to grow their brand for them to grow customers that buy their products, that subscribe to their services, or donate to their mission. And so in order to do that, we're launching our corporate sponsorship campaign, which will allow us to stand on bigger shoulders, and our companies thereby to stand on bigger shoulders. And so if Google and Goldman Sachs 10,000 businesses and Motorola and Boeing and JP Morgan Chase, if they're telling our story, and more or less our story is the story of our entrepreneurs, and if our partners like Kirkland & Ellis, who is our legal partner, if they're telling their associates in one of the largest law firms that focuses on private equity in the country or around the world, that's going to incrementally expand the messages. So it is about the community of partnerships and collaborating with them to not just tell our story, but more importantly the stories of the causes, the companies, the nonprofits that we're supporting. And that is really powerful. And you know what? It's not as expensive that way. So it's a very sustainable point of reference that ultimately you create a vehicle and a culture that many different players can connect to, and we share one another's story. It takes a while to set up, so I don't want to Pollyanna it, but it is working.
Yeah, I'm so on board with that. Some of the magic of the work we do is that community is, relatively speaking, very cheap. And that has allowed me to work within TechSoup to build out this NetSquared network of volunteers, and there's about 20,000 people throughout the meetup groups. But if I had to show straight-up returns to TechSoup, which is basically a social enterprise who charges an admin fee for software donations, I don't think I can make a really strong case for for NetSquared existing. We're just not driving that kind of software donations. But we do provide a whole bunch of other kinds of value to the organization. And part of that I've seen is one, of course, we're building brand awareness. Again, we can measure it a little bit through surveys, but it's fuzzy. But what I constantly am hearing from the people who are writing grants within the organization is that the grassroots of Net Squared is super valuable to them because it allows them as an organization at TechSoup to say, well, what is the struggles and the challenges of nonprofits across the globe, and we're an actual voice going into the organization in the same way that social is. And then the other piece is we're this really interesting value add. So when you're writing a grant application, in our case, you get to say like, yes, we're going to do all these like this big series of educational events around, like, say, online privacy and security, and also we can do, say, 10 live events in people's communities and sort of see how people interpret that issue within their own community. So that's sort of how we draw value, but as I say, it's a good thing this program is cheap, because otherwise I wouldn't know how to justify it either.
And I think, real quick, just with No Kid Hungry and what we do with social and community management, is we are one part of their entire marketing platform. I mean, they have email marketing, they have SEO, they have link SEO, I believe, they have comms, they have PR, so it's all these different components that are kind of working together. But as I've been pretty fortunate to see, is that the communication between all these departments is very fluid. It's pretty instantaneous too. So so even though social doesn't drive a huge part of it, we are definitely weaved into all these other aspects of their marketing and communications that they have.
I like the idea of a catchphrase. Maybe it's not a catchphrase, but the community and collaborators being a primary distribution channel for voice, time, and money. And to see community, this is what this forum is exploring, and why I'm so excited about it is we've been trying to find ways to unsoften community in the perception of the public as a community, as a currency, not just a sort of feel-good kumbaya, which I don't believe anyone on this forum believes, but it is a perception just based on the word alone, similar to social, and to look at it as a primary revenue distribution channel, as a pipeline generator, and as a currency, I think is, just as I'm listening to everyone, a real key takeaway for me on this call. So great. This was very productive for me.
But let's not be afraid of kumbaya, because I think that's also valuable too. We need to sort of, find the way to balance that with the numbers as well.
The yes and.
Yeah, I think we always say too, if you're doing community really well, like the numbers and metrics are going to follow. I think if you're you're valuing people, you're making them feel a part of your movement, your cause, your mission, you're acknowledging them, and all those things are going to follow. If you're in community and doing relationship well, the rest just follows.
And I just wanted to say, I'm seeing on Twitter a lot of people talking about how everybody up here has smiling faces, so they're associating that with the fact that we all work for causes or nonprofits, and I just think it's a matter of we got the right people doing the right jobs.
I certainly am really smug about the career that I stumbled into.
All right, guys, well, we are out of time. You're welcome to stay on the Hangout here for you guys who had joined us live on the Hangout. We call that the Community Manager After Party. But for everybody watching, we have to say goodbye. And Sherry, what's going on next week?
Next week we are talking agency community management. So we do still have openings for panelists if you work for an agency and want to join us.
Awesome. Well, I love that topic for sure. So thanks again, everybody. This was great. The hour flew by, and we'll see you all next Friday. Bye.
Thank you.
Everybody, thanks.
Yeah.